Welcome back, folks. Today is June 27th, 2024, and welcome to episode 5. I was off by an episode last week, so it was actually episode 4. It's episode 5 this week, and we are heading into the Red Bull Ring this week, the Austrian Grand Prix, and should be another exciting race. Had a great race last week, and which we'll delve into, and I'm joined with Kreska. He was absent last week. He was out bowling, I think, with the in-laws. Yes,
I was getting my butts kicked by not only my wife but my in-laws at bowling. So yeah, sorry, perfect. I missed it.
Yeah, that's okay. And I had a feeble attempt at making the bowling sound effect. Yeah, just totally miffed it and forgot that I had my headphones in. Well, it makes sense. We're learning. We're trying. So that is what it is.
We're trying.
But yeah, so Aaron's out this week. He is in California for work. So just to be Dennis and I, and we're going to go through last week's race in Spain, which was exciting, kind of go through what happened with Lando losing the lead right off the bat there. Unfortunately, had a really kind of a poor start off just from the jump, went from first down to third, and Russell really sped ahead. I mean, he took a full advantage of that poor start and just went right around everyone and jumped into first place. Was a very short-lived first place run for him. Unfortunately, Max then took over. And then Lando got back into first, and I thought was going to hang on, just was unable to hold the lead, and then got behind, I think he was behind Max by about 9 seconds at the time of his last pit stop there. And was charging ahead. That car was lightning fast last weekend. That
McLaren a lot of speed.
Yeah. And so again, just ran out of laps. I think he would have caught up to Max and probably passed him if he had probably another 3-4 laps, because he cut it down from 9 seconds down to, I think, under 2 seconds by the time the last lap was. So another great race. So we had Verstappen finishing first again. I think this is win number 2 in a row. After we had 2 different weeks prior to that with, I shouldn't say that, but with Lando winning in Miami and then Leclerc winning in Monaco. Lando finishing second, and then Hamilton back on the podium in third.
Yeah. So first podium of the year, right?
Yeah. And first one, I think,
cool
a little bit of, for a while anyway, for him. So
yeah,
but
definitely.
In all honesty, I did not think Red Bull looked as dominating as they have in races past or even years past. So I wonder if it's a combination of their car versus has everyone just caught up?
Starting to catch up, right?
Yeah. So it seems like the two teams that have really, Ferrari's always seems to be there. I can't remember exactly where they finished. I think they're kind of in the middle of the pack there in the top 10 there, if I remember correctly. I think maybe 5th and 6th, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But you had Piastri move from 10th up to 7th. He had a pretty disappointing Q3, but drove a very strong race. He was up in the top 3 or 4 there for a chunk of the race, but just with pit stops and those types of things, he was unable to kind of hold those spots, but still scored points, which was fantastic. But it seems like McLaren and Mercedes, I feel like, has made a huge jump with their upgrades in the past few weeks, to the point that they seem to be really probably going to be jumping up into the contenders portion here, if not for the rest of the season.
I agree.
So I think they've made quite a huge stride.
You think they've leaped over Ferrari? I mean, I know they finished ahead of them this week, but do you think that's like here to stay kind of thing?
I think so. It seems like that. They were really strong. It seemed like in Canada, they just kind of came out of nowhere. George was on pole, and now they had another really strong showing here in Spain last week. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of how things go this next upcoming week as well, because I couldn't see that anyone was bringing major upgrades to this next race either. So we'll have to see what comes to be during this next race in Austria. It's a fast track. It's a short track. It's not a huge track by any stretch in terms of distance. And so it'll be really interesting to see kind of how the field pans out. But everyone, I think, has always argued it's just a car. It's not Max. Max isn't the greatest.
I don't know, man. That guy's a great driver.
Yeah, Perez was in the same car, and he was out of the top 10, if I remember correctly. So
no, he finished. He was top 10. He was 8. P8. Yeah, but that's P8, really.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think he qualified in the top 10. So
no, I mean, he struggled even with that. So
right. And so I think it's not just the car, it's the driver. Absolutely 100% as well. So we'll see what this next race brings up, and we'll kind of delve into that a little bit more with our preview towards the end of the show here today. So
yeah.
But the other interesting thing that I saw last week was Alpine. They pulled their tractor car into the top 10, both cars finishing in the points. So what do you think? Do you think this is signs that the French squad is finally turning things around here?
Maybe. I mean, we know the drivers are decent, right? I particularly like Gasly a lot. I mean, former Grand Prix winner, right?
Both of them.
It does seem like they're, fair enough. Yeah, both of them. You're right. They seem to be trying to do more to be a bigger team, if that makes sense. I mean, I know we're going to talk about this later, but allegedly they made some lucrative offer to Sainz.
Right. Yeah, right. I did see that.
So, and then you're seeing all this, they're the team with all the celebrity buy-in, right? So all these celebrities are investing in the team. So it does seem like they're starting to make moves. Maybe we're starting to see it, right? Maybe we're starting to see it through upgrades and some of that. I don't know. It's hard to tell with one race, but man, that was a surprise seeing them both in there.
It was. It really, really was. And so it'd be nice to see another midfield team kind of climb up into the mix a little bit. I think just having more teams being competitive just makes it overall much more entertaining to watch.
Agreed.
And
it's so much fun.
It'd be nice. Yeah. And so getting another team and it's a historic team. I mean, this used to be Renault. It's now Alpine. So it'd be nice to have one of those kind of those blue chip teams back into the mix again, which would be great. And it's interesting too, because with Esteban leaving the team at the end of the year, who knows what's going to happen with Gasly again. We'll kind of delve into that here a little bit with if we can pull out the crystal ball and kind of predict who's going to end up where
silly
here
season.
Before silly season officially starts here in a couple of weeks, which is hard to believe that we're almost to the summer break already, but it seems like Alpine, just for one race anyway, seems like they had finally got their shit together. So who knows what will happen. If this is just a fluke, if it was a 1 week deal, again, we'll find out this upcoming week as well. And so I want to kind of get back into the Mercedes thing.
Okay.
If you didn't know, and you may or may not have noticed during the pit stops towards the end of the race, they put George on the hard compound. And a few laps later, Lewis comes in, they put him on the soft compound. And then lo and behold, Lewis finishes on the podium, a spot ahead, and passes George.
Yeah, he did.
So it just seems like the whole dynamic with that team right now just seems very odd and very, very...
There's tension too between the drivers.
Yeah,
definitely.
There is. And there also seems to be a lot of tension between Toto Wolff and Lewis, because at the end of the Canadian Grand Prix, Lewis just kind of pulled in silence after Toto had said something to him about, this is just how it goes. Sorry, man. And Hamilton said not a word. And then all of a sudden the strategy is completely different for one driver versus the other. It just seems very, very strange that it almost seemed like they took George out of the mix, which I found very, very odd, because I figured you'd want both of your drivers up towards the top there.
I mean, you'd think, yeah, it's weird. And one thing I've seen is, and this is just Dennis's opinion, I'm sure many others think the same, but just seems like George, I mean, okay, we all know George is whiny, right? Just kind of whiny, always has been, but he seems only focused on Lewis.
Right.
Like all his comments, everything is about Lewis, right? Like not what's going on in the race. It's why did Lewis pass me? Why is he, why am I having to get out of the way for him? That kind of thing. And it's kind of been like that most of the season. So it's just interesting, kind of goes just evidence on what you're already saying, right? There's just tension there in the team. And it's like, dude, you're thinking short term. Just go with it. You're going to be here next year. They're building it around you.
Him just trying to show like, yes, I can be the number one guy next year. I can be the man. I can be the one that takes this team to the next level of where Lewis had us before,
Right.
That I don't know. It also kind of makes you wonder, what's the dynamic going to be like at Ferrari next year? Because Leclerc,
who's the number one guy?
Right. Yeah. I don't see Leclerc being like, oh yeah, okay, you can be. No, I mean,
no,
they're getting rid of a fantastic driver to bring in Hamilton, and he's been a great teammate. And obviously Hamilton has a history, Nico Rosberg, for instance, not being the greatest of teammate,
That's probably the best example.
Right. So it's hard to say. So it'll be interesting to see, but the dynamic on that team right now seems very, very, like they're butting heads quite a bit. And there might be even some, there's competition between, it seems like even their strategy between the teams is vastly different and almost favoring. I felt like they were favoring George the races prior to that. And then they kind of did a 180 this last week and then gave Lewis the upper hand, and Lewis, he really took advantage of it and finished third and got it on the podium. So we'll see. Well, it'll be interesting to see kind of how, especially once they announce who's taking Lewis's seat, what does that look like? So who knows, but more to come. But, overall, otherwise,
I'm here for it, man. I'm here for all of this drama.
I thought the race was entertaining. Lots of good passing, especially in the second, third, and fourth positions for most of the race. And even, towards the back end of the race, I really thought that Lando was going to catch up to Verstappen and possibly pass him again. But overall, this season seems just to be much, much more competitive and a lot more fun.
Oh, yeah. Much better than last year.
Because last year you'd be 10 laps in and be like, oh, okay, he's already had like 20 seconds. The race is over.
Last year when we were betting, it was a constant bet to take that the winner, which we all know would be, but the bet would say winner over under for lead would be 10 seconds.
Right.
Double digit lead. You always take that bet. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Now it's 2.
Yeah.
It was 2 seconds. So, that's way better. And there was a ton of passing.
Yeah. So, just a much more entertaining race. So I'm hoping for the same thing here this upcoming week in Austria. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to shift gears here, get back into driver signings. I feel like we talk about this every week.
I know, but we have to.
It is a hot topic because you have the vast majority of teams currently that are not set for next year. Probably the only teams that we know for a fact that are set currently are Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren. That might be it. Out of the 10 teams, only 3 of them have solid lineups for next year. So there's a lot of moving parts. Obviously, we've got some teams that have for sure drivers. VCarb, Yuki will be there next year.
Right.
Aston has Fernando again next year. Mercedes obviously has George next year. And there's just a lot of teams that probably Haas being one of them. I think they're going to have 2 seats. I don't think they're going to keep Magnussen around. It'll be interesting.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, it looks like Ollie Behrman is for certain going to be a Haas driver next year, and so I think that's a great.
All signs are pointing to that, and it makes total sense.
So I think Behrman on that team makes sense. He's a great driver. It just depends on what kind of car they can give him to drive next year. Because obviously, you put that kid in a decent car, he's going to make some noise. Because he showed that in Saudi Arabia this past year when he was
first ever time on the grid, and that's what he does.
Right. Yeah, and he knocked it out of the park. I mean, he scored points that week. He looked fast. So if they can put a decent car underneath him, I think he's going to do really, really well next year for that team. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep Magnussen around. I haven't heard anything to the contrary one way or the other, whether or not they're going to keep him around. I think they're playing it pretty tight to the vest for now, but it seems like a lot of teams are. I'm not really certain, why. So, but I think the big domino, the big one, I think this one will fall and then the rest will fall after it is going to be Carlos Sainz. I think he's been rumored to be wanting to sign with.
That is the linchpin in the whole silly season.
Yeah. So I think he literally, once he goes, the rest of the drivers will follow. But it's hard to say what team he's going to go to because I think he's been rumored for every single team on the grid with the exception of the 3 teams that we just talked about. It sounds like Williams is making a valiant effort to get him on their team. And now Alpine, like you had just said earlier, has joined the fray as well and is making a concerted effort to get him. And now remind me, did he drive for Alpine at one point? I don't think he did. Was he with Ricardo?
Was he with Renault? I feel like it was him and Ricardo together. I'm
going to look it up.
I'm failing you, listeners. I'm sorry. All the F1 fans are screaming at us right now, but I'm almost positive they were together. Yeah. Okay.
He was there 2 years.
We'll edit that out to make it sound like we knew what we were talking about.
Yeah. And then he went to McLaren and then he went to Ferrari. So I thought
that's what it is.
That was the case. Yeah. So is he going to join back with his old team? Who knows? Does he join a lower Williams car? Just isn't good. I would be shocked if he went to Williams. I feel like that is a major.
I would too. And I have a thought on this. I was thinking about this today. Max has not re-signed yet, right?
Nah, that I'm aware of. No.
I mean, pretty sure he's going back to Red Bull, but Max has not re-signed yet. And I think that's part of this, right? Toto just came out last week and said he hasn't given up on Max. He's so obviously Mercedes is still just, why not give it a shot? He hasn't signed yet. So why don't we take a stab at it? And I think maybe that has a lot to do with why a lot of people haven't signed anywhere yet, because they want to make sure everyone wants to take a stab at Max, right? I mean, let's be honest. I'm throwing all my money at him if I can get him on my team. So as soon as he signs, I think everything else will boom. So it almost makes me wonder. Let's just assume Max re-signs with Red Bull. He probably will. Mm-hmm. Then maybe Toto looks at everything differently. Hey, let's go get it. Maybe he does say, hey, Carlos, come on over. Right. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting. But I just find it weird that all the team that he's linked with is our lower midfield. Now, granted, the Kick Sauber team, which will become Audi in not this upcoming year, but the following year in 26.
Right, 26, yeah.
That team's so going to take a while to get off the ground.
We'll be right back. Attention, gearheads. Feeling like your taste buds haven't qualified for the podium? Well, hit the gas and head over to Scrivener Farms, Kenner, Nebraska's champion choice for jams and jellies. Scrivener Farms jams and jellies are a flavor power lap. We're talking pole position peach, a first place plum that'll leave you wanting to do a victory lap, and for those who crave a pit stop with a kick, the jalapeno jelly will take you from 0 to 60 in record time. So ditch the post-race disappointment and head to your local grocery store. Grab a jar of Scrivener Farms jam or jelly and taste the victory lane feeling. This podcast is brought to you by Scrivener Farms, Kenner, Nebraska. Scrivener Farms, flavor that takes the checkered flag. And now, back to the show.
Getting back into, what was I talking about? Signs with Sauber.
Signs. Yep.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because that team is not going to start winning championships right away. It's going to be a learning process. This is a brand new team, a brand new manufacturer. There's going to be some growing pains. So is that something that you want, as Carlos Sainz, get involved with? You're going to have a solid teammate with Nico Hülkenberg. You got plenty of money. You got plenty of, obviously investment, plenty of technology. They're going to have all the things. Audi's going to do it right, but it's not going to be a slam dunk car probably right off the bat. I could be wrong. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. I think there's going to be some growing pains for a few years. So is that something you want to be involved in right away? Or is that something you slow play and be like, okay, I'm going to be on one of these teams for a few years, see how it goes, and then join Audi later? I don't know. Yeah. Which I think there will, but it depends upon who they get as their second driver for that. So we know that there's going to be an open Williams seat, and it'll be interesting to see who that's going to be, because Logan Sargent is signed with Prima for IndyCar for 2025. So we know that he's not going to be, which will be fun to see. It'll be great to still see him driving. I'm happy for him,
right? Like that's a good landing spot for him, I think.
Yeah.
Now we'll really get to see how good the driver is.
Yeah, I wish that he would have had better luck, but it just hasn't worked out, unfortunately, at this point. But hopefully he does well in IndyCar, and then hopefully gets him back to the point that he could get back into a Formula One seat and have a little bit more success, because it'd be really great to have an American driver in there again. So best of luck to him, but he will be out for next year. Be interesting to see. Again, Sainz has been that's been the big rumor for Sainz, as the landing spot would be Williams. And they're obviously putting a lot of investment, and James Vowles, the principal for that team, seems to be heading the right direction, but maybe he just needs a different style of driver, different type of driver, because the car is always fast. They just, unfortunately, are just not finishing where they should be, which is usually towards the bottom. So we didn't see who Williams ends up signing. But again, like we said before, I think, and you think, Sainz will be going to go down, and then they'll all kind of follow after that. So,
yep, it'll all happen fast too.
Yeah, and I just saw, before we got on the podcast this evening, per reports, Liam Lawson is replacing Danny Ricciardo this year.
Good.
End of July.
I mean, that's the right move. I love Ricciardo, but no, He's done.
Yeah.
Which
is unfortunate. Yeah.
And Lawson has proven himself. So that's great. Great news.
Yeah. Yeah. So Lawson, I think if he does well the rest of the season, he's in. Then that leaves Ricardo an open spot. Does he land somewhere else next year? I don't see it happening. I really don't, which is unfortunate.
No, I don't think so. I could see him just kind of sticking around and being a face of F1. He'll land something, he could interview or something, some kind of analyst.
Right. And the other question,
people love him too much.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other reserve driver that probably deserves a seat next year is Jack Doohan.
Yes.
He's the Alpine reserve driver. So is it him and Gasly next year? And can those two play nice in the sandbox? Because obviously Esteban and Pierre didn't get along well this year, obviously with Ocon driving into Gasly during the Monaco Grand Prix. But, is that something in this situation where he is elevated into that seat behind Gasly? Because per the stuff that I've read or seen anyway, it sounds like they're pretty keen on keeping Gasly around for another season. I mean, it makes sense to bring these reserve drivers up. I just don't understand. They do all the work behind the scenes in the simulator, doing all the work, getting these guys and these cars ready for race day. It seems like a obvious fit to bring him up, because I think that's kind of where maybe Alpine lost with Piastri, because Piastri was the reserve driver. And then the McLaren seat came open, and maybe he was just, but it was funny too, because they said, oh yeah, we're bringing up Oscar. He's going to be our driver. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm going over here.
Nope.
And so, obviously it was probably a better deal for him at McLaren, but I think if they're not careful, they're going to lose out on Doohan as well. And he seems like a legit up and coming driver as well. So it'd be
agreed.
In my opinion, I think it'd be in Alpine's best interest to sign him and get him in that second seat next year.
Yeah, I find it hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And there's, rumors abound for all the other teams with Haas. We know Behrman's who's going to be the second driver there. Is going to be Magnussen, like kind of talked about. There's been rumors of Valtteri Bottas taking the second seat at Haas, possibly.
Yeah. Which
I think would be great. I think keeping Valtteri in the lineup is fantastic. But I think the drivers currently, with the exception of unfortunately Logan Sargent, have been rumored to be at a different team next year. Even Esteban Ocon, I think he's been rumored to be possibly even Mercedes, which I don't see that happening whatsoever. I think if it's not Max, like you had mentioned before, I think that'd be a huge, huge deal. Obviously, they've got a very young driver as well waiting in the wings in Kimi Antonelli. Yep. And with the history of Mercedes missing out on Max Verstappen when he was a younger driver, I don't think Mercedes is going to.
They want to let that,
miss out on another possible phenom driver up and coming through the ranks as well. So, and the FIA changed the rules that then allows Antonelli to be driving based on points for a super.
I think he's like 11 now or something, right? Is that when he's going to drive? Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. There's plenty of drivers available. It'll be interesting to see kind of where everyone lands. I think this break's going to be really, really entertaining. I think that 4-week break's going to be really, really interesting to kind of see where folks land. But I think it'd be fun. Maybe something we needed to just throw out on the socials this week is kind of where people think they're going to wind up.
Yeah, so that's a good idea.
We'll throw those on the socials this week as well. So, and if you're on following us, please follow us. Yeah, just please follow. We're on all the platforms: X, Facebook, Instagram. I don't know if we're on Threads. I don't think we're on Threads yet. But you can just follow us at Stateside Speed, and we'll throw up some polls this week.
Yeah,
or
if
you just want to chime in and just say, hey, I think these are the lineups, and we'll kind of I'm sure we'll be talking about that each and every week for probably the next month and a half until we know for certain what things are next year. So excellent.
Strange things happen. I mean, we didn't expect Hamilton to jump ship and go over to Ferrari beginning of the year.
No,
so
not at all. And that was even before the season really got up.
Right.
I mean, that was in January. So who knows? Yeah. So crazy stuff. So
God, I love
more
F1.
news to come. Yeah, it's great. I love it too. It's fantastic. So So this week's race, home of Red Bull, the Austrian Grand Prix, the Red Bull Ring. Obviously a very heavy race for Red Bull fans of any form, especially Verstappen fans. I think the Dutch crowd travels very well to Austria. I think they may or may not have outlawed all of the orange smoke that they were releasing in the stands.
Oh, really?
Just because I can't remember it. Maybe they can do it like at the end of the race, but I think they tried to limit it during the race just from a
just in case
visibility issue,
sure.
Which makes sense. And so, but it's always an entertaining race. I really like that track. It's fast.
It's a good track.
And it's just a really entertaining race to watch, but obviously means a whole lot to the Red Bull team. And so it'll be interesting to see if Max continues his latest winning streak and extending it to 3 race wins in a row here. And thus far, the weather report seems favorable. It seems dry for the first couple free practices. We do have a sprint race this week.
We do.
Which is fantastic. And so they've got sprint qualifying, I believe, early Saturday morning in the States here. I think it might be like 3 or 4 in the morning. I'd have to double check again, but I know the sprint race itself, I think, is on Saturday morning at about 9 o'clock or so in the States. And so always love it with the sprint races. It's kind of like a 2-for-1 deal when it comes to races. And so just more chances for points, more chances hopefully for teams to kind of move up the ranks. Obviously, I'm a little biased with being a McLaren fan. We've got our driver in second place for the first time in his career. Lando's up to P2 in the points in the driver's standing. And the constructors, I think they're moving up as well. They still may be in second place. Yeah, they're in third right now. They're right behind Ferrari by looks like about 33 points. So lots to come, lots more points up for grabs this week. Really, really interested to see how this race is going to go. But the weather could turn on race day. There is a moderate chance for rain on race day on Sunday. Rain's always the great equalizer. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. So, because that really came into play in the Canadian Grand Prix. I mean, tremendously, because they kept waiting. Is it going to rain? Is it going to rain? It didn't. And I think that kind of posed a few of the teams really. So
it did.
And so,
I mean, look at Haas when it was raining. They looked like geniuses.
Yeah, they're on the full wets and they were just passing everyone. And then,
it stopped and that didn't work anymore. They went back to where they belong.
Right. And so, like we mentioned earlier in the show, no huge upgrades upcoming that we're really aware of. So I think where teams were at last week, obviously this course itself, I think, has a lot more high speed turns and a few low speed corners as well. But I think overall should play into those same teams with Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, and McLaren probably being the top 4 teams again going into this weekend. I'm not convinced that Alpine is going to have as strong a showing as they did last week here, but who knows? But we'll see. And so, but no major upgrades from reports that I could find anyway for race cars coming in.
I couldn't find anything either.
So getting into it.
Yeah, let's do that
this week. What are you thinking for predictions for the podium this week, Dennis?
Well, for the podium, should I do sprint race as well? Just do it all.
Yeah,
because I kind of have a thought train here, right? So, okay, what I'm seeing, I want it to be better than this, but this is kind of what I'm thinking. So I think Lando has a shot to win the sprint. I think, I could see him coming out. That car is fast. They've had the race pace the last couple races, hasn't quite worked out. I think he can win the sprint, but I think when it comes to the main race on Sunday, I think Max is going to take it. He's won 4 out of 6 there. It's his home track, right? Like the guy, that track is built for him. I just think over the course of the long race, I think he's going to get it. And I think it's going to be another 1-2, Max and Lando. And I think I'm putting him on the podium again. I know I did it last week and it didn't work out, but I think I can see Leclerc getting up there. He's really good at this track too. He won it in 2022. So that's my prediction for the sprint and the podium. And then bold prediction, Perez continues to struggle. He's going to be out of the points. He's not getting this week.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have anything terribly different from you for the main race. I think Max wins again. I think Lando finishes second. And I'm going to put a Mercedes in third again. I think Russell finishes third this week. So,
I kind of went back and forth with that. So yeah, I could see that as well.
Mercedes, the cars look stronger and stronger each week since Canada. Granted, it was only like 2 weeks ago, but I think they'll have a really strong race again this week. And so that car seems like it's been gaining momentum. I feel like George and Lewis both are really getting the feel for it. And I think driving it a lot smoother with a lot more confidence as well. So I could see George finishing third. For the sprint, yeah, that's a tough one.
It really is.
I feel like I agree. I think Lando could win it. Again, I'm very, very biased. Oscar won a sprint last year. I could see him doing that again this year. I don't think it'll be this race though. Sprint race winner. I'm going to go Leclerc. I think Leclerc wins the sprint. I see Lando finishing second and Max third.
For the sprint?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
And then bold prediction. Boy.
It's hard to come up with the bold ones now, right?
Yeah.
We can't all have a bold prediction.
Here we go. Bold prediction. Carlos Sainz crashes Lewis Hamilton. Both out of the race.
I love it.
Not on purpose, obviously, but
never on purpose.
Yeah, they have contact.
So much respect.
They're both out. So that's
that would be wild. We've seen stuff like that before, and that seems like a Ferrari go-to move.
So who knows? So, and like I talked about last week, it was kind of a joke, but I'm kind of getting more serious about it. The application for a job as a marshal at the race in Vegas in November.
I love this idea.
I'm not exactly what it entails. The website
marshalling, obviously.
Right. But with the flags, like run on the track, and maybe it's like, well, with your job, you can go out and like rescue them from said car if they're having a medical event. Like, yeah, you probably could. And so, but the website's still not up. There's still no application process up. So I'll keep checking.
I checked it too because I want you to do it, and we're going to make a push to get you in there. I don't know what we could do, but online petition. I don't know. It's got to happen, maybe. Man. You got to get on there and represent us.
Yeah, I will. I'll post it. Keep folks up to date. We can kind of follow the process, and it might not be doable. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, you got to live out here for a month," and obviously that's not going to happen. So, but I can't imagine that folks do that, because we met those marshals at the race last year down in Austin, and they were just in town just for the race, and then they were
for the race. Yeah.
Then they were going back home. So I'm sure that they will. I don't know. More to come. And more to learn.
It's awesome. It's just so awesome. So you got to do it. Real quick, Sean, I got some predictions from Aaron. So
I saw that.
As you said,
I'm seeing the text.
I don't know if you want to read them or.
Oh no, go for it.
All right, cool. So Aaron just chimed in. Let us know what his predictions were for this weekend. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to go in this order. So his sprint race winner, he has Max. For the race, he said Obvi Lando P1. So he got Lando P1, Verstappen P2, Russell P3. So very similar to yours.
Yeah.
Don. And then for his bold prediction, Gasly at P5.
Wow.
So I like that. That's definitely a bold prediction. I mean, it's not quite as bold as saying Danny Rick at top 5, but I was bowling and drinking, people. All right. I just had some fun with it.
That's awesome. Awesome. So, all right. Well, I think that wraps up the show for this week. Thanks again, Dennis, for joining this week. Hopefully we can have the trio back together next week, because after this week is Silverstone, which is always a fantastic race. The British Grand Prix is always a marvelous race. And so hopefully we can get all three of us together on the pod, kind of go over the Austrian Grand Prix, hope for another exciting race this week. We'll try to throw up some polls on the socials this week. Please engage with us. If you see our posts, please engage with us, ask questions, or there's things you'd like us to talk about, or anything you agree or disagree with us on. We'd love to chat with you as well. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at Stateside Speed. And we'll get back to you if you ever leave us a message. And also email us at statesidespeed@gmail.com as well if you really want to email us. But don't feel like
we check it sometimes. So it's
sometimes
we'll look.
But the socials are probably the easiest way to follow with us, engage with us.
That's right.
From there. And if you are following us on those channels, we greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Trying to build the show and grow, and hopefully as we continue trying, we'll get better and better each and every week. And so, yeah, with that, I got nothing else left. Any other parting words?
Go Lando.
Yes. Go McLaren. Go Lando.
Always.
Yeah. So thanks, folks. We'll see you next time.
Thank you all. Bye.